Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a really profound text, the Bhagavad Gita.
Absolutely. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, think of it as like a guide to universal truth, something for spiritual growth. It tackles these huge questions, about who we are, how to live peacefully even when things are tough.
And its influence is just immense. You mentioned Thoreau, Emerson, Einstein, Gandhi, even Oppenheimer. It's resonated deeply for centuries.
Exactly. So our mission today is basically to pull out the key insights, make its core message clear and hopefully pretty impactful for you listening.
Sounds good. And to really get it, you need the context, right?
Right. Set the scene for us.
Okay, so the Gita is this intense conversation. It's between Lord Krishna and a warrior, Arjuna,
And this is happening where?
on a battlefield. Right before a massive war, the Mahabharata, this is thought to be around maybe 3139 BCE, near where New Delhi is today.
Wow. High stakes.
Extremely.
Yeah.
And Arjuna's got this terrible dilemma. His duty is to fight, but, well, he's facing his own family, his teachers, people he respects.
That's gut-wrenching.
It really is. And the Gita frames this as a universal dilemma. It's not just Arjuna's problem. It mirrors the hard choices, the duties we all face.
That feeling of being trapped between a rock and a hard place, yeah.
And crucially, this whole dialogue, this inner struggle, it wasn't private.
Oh.
It was narrated in real time by someone named Sanjaya to the blind king Dhritarashtra. So we, the audience, get this kind of fly-on-the-wall perspective.
That's a fascinating setup. So our aim then for this deep dive
Is to explore these core ideas.
exactly, the self-duty, the cycle of life and death, the different ways to connect spiritually. We want clarity, practical takeaways, insights you can actually use.
Makes sense. Where should we start?
Okay, let's unpack maybe the most fundamental idea first.
Yeah.
What the Gita says about who we really are, that distinction it makes.
Right. This is key. The Gita draws a very sharp line between what's eternal and what's just temporary.
Okay.
It introduces the Atman, the spirit, the self. This is described as invisible, eternal, indestructible. It permeates everything.
Like the essence of everything.
Kind of, yeah. That's in verses like 2.16, 2.17. And then, in contrast, you have the physical body. Everything we see and touch.
Which is?
Perishable, temporary, fleeting. Verse 2.1 and 8 makes that clear. And this isn't just philosophy, it's the foundation for everything else.
Yeah.
Duty, detachment.
Because if you grasp that your core self is eternal.
Then the temporary stuff, the physical world, maybe doesn't have such a tight grip on you. The worries seem smaller.
So there's this essence beyond just our bodies and our lifespan.
Yeah.
Which leads to reincarnation, doesn't it?
Exactly. The Gita explains this in verses 2.13 and 2.22. It uses this really great analogy, like just changing clothes. The soul puts on new bodies when the old ones wear out.
Simple but powerful.
It is. And the implication is huge.
Yeah.
Death isn't the end, it's a transition. Understanding that can, lessen the fear of it.
The Gita actually says the wise aren't troubled by death.
Right. Because they understand this continuity. The soul just moves on.
And it describes this soul, this spirit, in more detail.
Oh, yes. Verses 2.19 to 2.24 really lay it out. It's unborn, eternal, permanent, ancient. It doesn't die when the body dies.
Wow.
Can't be cut by weapons, burned by fire, wet by water, dried by wind. It's unchanging, immutable.
Connecting with that idea, realizing there's this eternal part of you that could seriously change how you see challenges, right? Life's ups and downs.
Absolutely. It gives you that bigger picture perspective. It's a potential game changer for dealing with fear and loss.
Okay, so if that's the nature of the self, how does the Gita tell us to act in this temporary world? This brings us to duty, dharma, and selfless action, Karmayoga.
Right. So Arjuna, as we said, was really struggling. Chapter 1 shows him just overcome with compassion, basically refusing to fight. He sees it as evil.
Killing relatives and teachers. Understandable.
Totally. But the commentary on some verses, like 2.3132, introduces this idea of a righteous war, not religious, but a necessary fight against injustice, against evil.
That's complex.
It is. There's this analogy used. If you don't stand up to evil, you're kind of indirectly supporting it.
Wow.
The text even suggests dying for a just cause is, in a way, better than just a normal death. It's about upholding dharma, what's right.
That's a challenging idea. But then there's Karma Yoga that feels more broadly applicable, maybe.
Definitely. Karmayoga is central. Verses like 2.47 and 48 explain it. It's about doing your duty, your work, but without getting attached to the results.
So focus on the action itself, not what you'll get out of it.
Exactly. Pour your energy into doing the task well, with integrity. The Gita says your control is only over the action, the duty.
Not the outcome.
Precisely. You can't control the fruits of your labor.
Okay, that makes sense. What are the benefits of that approach? Why do it?
Well, verses 2.39 and 40 point to some big ones. Freedom from karmic bondage, that cycle of action and reaction driven by desire.
Okay.
Also, the assurance that no sincere effort is ever truly wasted, and it protects you from the fear associated with birth and death.
And the alternative? Acting selfishly?
Leads to unhappiness, according to verse 2.49. The Gita also points out, very practically in 3.08, that even just to live, to maintain the body, you have to act, you have to work.
Right. Can't avoid action.
No. And interestingly, it suggests in 3.0 and 11 that the creator, Brahma, actually set up selfless service as the way to prosper and fulfill desires. It's like the system is designed for it.
So selfless action isn't just moral, it's almost cosmically aligned.
That's a good way to put it. It fits the flow of existence.
And didn't you mention something about leaders needing to set an example?
Yes. Chapter 3, verses 20-21. Leaders have a special duty to act selflessly. Their actions influence everyone else. They set the tone for society.
Makes sense. Now, a question might come up. How does all this focus on action fit with spiritual knowledge? Aren't they sometimes seen as separate paths?
That's a really important point, and Chapter 5 tackles it directly. Verses 1 and 2 clarify that both paths, knowledge and selfless action, lead to the same ultimate goal.
Okay, so they're not opposed.
Not at all. But the Gita then suggests that selfless service, Karmayoga, is often superior, more practical, maybe more accessible for most people.
Interesting.
And verse 5.03 adds this nuance. A true renunciant isn't someone who just drops out. It's someone who does their duty without attachment, free from liking or disliking the outcomes.
So engaging with life, but differently.
Exactly, with detachment. And that person finds liberation easily through that selfless action. It's about the inner state while acting.
Got it. Which kind of leads us naturally to think about the ultimate reality, God. What does the Gita say about the nature of God?
Well, Chapter 7, verse 6, presents the Supreme Being Bhagavan as the source of everything, the origin and also the dissolution of the whole universe.
The beginning and the end.
Yes. And verse 7 uses that beautiful image. Everything is strung on God like jewels on a thread, interconnected, held together by the divine.
That's a powerful visual.
And Chapter 4, verses 7 and 8 add another layer. God isn't remote. The divine manifests, comes into the world periodically to protect the good, destroy evil, and reestablish righteousness, Dharma. It's an active, engaged divine presence.
Okay, so not distant. And how can people connect with the Supreme Being? You mentioned different paths.
Yes, the Gita outlines several main paths. There's Jñānayoga, the path of knowledge.
Okay.
Karmayoga, selfless service, which we've discussed. Bhaktiyoga, the path of devotion. And Jñānayoga, meditation.
Lots of options.
Yeah.
Does it favor one?
Interestingly, while validating all paths, Chapter 12, verse 12 actually suggests selfless service is perhaps the best or most effective for many.
Practical again.
Very much so. And it also acknowledges that people come to God with different motivations.
Also,
Chapter 4, verse 11, and Chapter 7, verses 21-22 explain that people worship for all sorts of reasons, and the divine responds accordingly, fulfilling their desires based on their faith.
so it meets people where they are.
Seems like it. Verse 7.2 Mother even says God can be perceived and worshipped in whatever form or image resonates with the devotee. It's quite inclusive.
That's very open. And bhakti, devotion, seems really important in the Gita, doesn't it?
Hugely important. It's often presented as a more direct, accessible path. Chapter 9, especially verses like 26, 32, 33, and also Chapter 11, verse 54, really emphasize the power of devotional love.
Is there a famous verse about that?
Yes, 9.26 is very well known. It says, God accepts even the simplest offering, a leaf, a flower, fruit, water, if it's offered with genuine love and devotion.
It's the intention that counts.
Absolutely. And the Gita even tackles the question of worshiping God as personal versus impersonal in Chapter 12.
What does it say?
Verses 1 through 4 suggest both approaches reach God, but those who are devoted with unwavering faith to the personal form of God are considered the highest yogis, though the others attain God too.
So devotion is highly valued. That's reassuring that the connection can be so heartfelt. Okay, shifting gears a bit, the Gita talks about the gunas, the three modes of material nature. Can you break those down?
Right, the gunas. Chapter 14 introduces these. They're like three fundamental qualities or forces that influence everything in the material world, including us.
And there.
Sattva, which is goodness, purity, light, knowledge. Rajas, passion, activity, ambition, attachment. And tamas, ignorance, inertia, darkness, delusion.
Okay, sattva, rajas, tamas.
And verse 14.05 says, these modes are what bind the eternal soul to the material world. They influence our thoughts, our actions, our whole experience.
Well, understanding them helps you understand yourself.
Definitely. It's a lens. If you see a lot of rajas, constant activity, restlessness, maybe you consciously try to cultivate more sattva, more peace, more balance.
They each have distinct effects.
Yes. Verses 14.06 to 09 and 11 to 13 detail this. Sattva brings happiness and wisdom. Rajas leads to intense activity, greed, attachment to work. Tamas results in laziness, confusion, illusion.
And these affect rebirth, too.
According to verses 14.14 to 18, yes.
Yeah.
The dominant guna at the time of death influences your next life.
Wow. So it's like understanding the basic energies shaping our lives. Can we get beyond them? Transcend the gunas?
Yes, definitely. Chapter 14, verses 19 and 20, talk about attaining liberation, nirvana, by rising above these three modes.
Wow.
Verse 14.26 points again to devotional love, bhakti, as the means to transcend the gunas and connect directly with the divine.
Okay. Which brings us to one of the most famous parts of the Gita, that incredible vision, the universal form, Zishvarupa.
Ah, yes, chapter 11. This is a climax. Arjuna actually asks Krishna to reveal his cosmic universal form. That's verses 1 through 4.
He asks to see everything.
Essentially, yes, and Krishna grants it. Verses 9 through 13 describe this unbelievable sight. Countless eyes, mouths, divine weapons, ornaments, the entire universe, all time, contained within Krishna's form.
I can't even imagine. How did Arjuna react?
Verses 14 to 31 describe him as completely overwhelmed, awestruck, but also terrified. He offers prayers, trying to comprehend what he's seeing.
It showed the interconnectedness of everything.
Exactly, and the sheer power and scale of the divine.
What was the main takeaway Krishna wanted Arjuna to get from this vision?
In verses 32 to 34, Krishna reveals himself as time, the great destroyer of worlds, saying the battle is already decided. Arjuna is just an instrument.
Just a participant in a larger cosmic play.
In a sense, yes. And verse 47 suggests seeing this form is the ultimate goal for a seeker. And verse 54 repeats that this vision, this understanding, comes through unwavering devotional love.
For wrapping up this deep dive, we've covered a lot. The eternal spirit within us, the Atman.
Right. The importance of selfless duty, Karmayoga, acting without attachment.
The different paths to connect with the divine, with bhakti, devotion, being highly emphasized.
The influence of those three modes, the guna, sattva, rajas, tamas.
And finally, that mind-blowing vision of the universal form showing the unity of everything.
And the key thing, I think, is that the Gita offers all this not just as theory, but as real guidance, tools for navigating life's challenges with more wisdom and peace.
It really does feel like a practical manual for living meaningfully, even thousands of years later. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. Which of these big ideas we talked about, the eternal self, selfless action, the paths to God, the gunas, that universal vision, which one resonates most with where you are right now? Think about how applying even just one of these principles might bring a bit more clarity or purpose to your own life. And, if this sparks something, definitely consider exploring the Bhagavad Gita further yourself.
Absolutely. There's always more to discover in it.